Hi, Jen.
Hey, Leyla, what's going on?
So first, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Sukruta. I'm the CTO of Girl Geek X. Thank you, Jen and Leyla, for making time for us today. A few housekeeping notes because I've been following the questions. Yes, there is video being recorded. It will be available for you in a week. We also want you to share on social media all the wise words that these amazing ladies are sharing with us today. So please tweet at #GGXElevate. So many great things also out of this event is that, you can also see all the job listings on our website, girlgeek.io/opportunities. So yeah, let's not waste any more time and get started. I'll introduce Leyla and Jen now. So Leyla is the Executive Vice President of the Salesforce mobile platform experience, enabling all customers to lock the power of Salesforce from anywhere. She's been at Salesforce for 11 years now and held a variety of positions across product management, product marketing, and business operations. Fun fact, she mentored Jen when Jen was at Salesforce as well, when Jen was the VP of product at search at Salesforce. Jen has had an amazing career as well, worked at Facebook, Adobe, and Macromedia after which it was acquired by Adobe. Thank you, ladies, again. They're going to be talking to us about always ask for more. So I want to make sure that you have all the time to ask the questions that you want to ask. Please use the Q&A button at the bottom, and we'll take Q&A at the end of this. Thank you.
Thanks.
So Leyla,
Hi,
how are you doing?
It's fun to see you. How are you?
Oh, it's good. It's really fun and exciting for me to be spending time talking to you today on this topic with this group, just because you've been such an instrumental part in my personal growth. And I've learned so much from you about your experience.
I've learned a lot from you too.
but kind of starting with the fact, you're one of the most senior women at one of the most successful companies in the world. Like, how'd you get there? Like, how did you decide to go do this?
That's a good question. Look, there's some luck. First off, right? Like anyone that says they're successful without acknowledging the luck of being at the right place at the right time, I think is a bit too much of a narcissist. My luck. At Salesforce's 20th birthday today, I've worked there 11 years. You worked there. A lot of the people I love the most in my professional life, I met there. So I was very lucky to go to such a great company so early. I also worked my butt off, right? And I pushed. It's International Women's Day. We're on the Girl Geek X webinar, so I feel like this is a good place to say it. But I just didn't settle for anything. I just pushed and pushed and pushed. And when I look back on it all, it wasn't all easy, right? It was not all easy. A lot of it was really, really hard, but it was totally worth it. I don't sit around and wish or wonder about what if I had asked for this or what if I had asked for that anymore, which is a nice change.
What surprised you on this journey?
I think that I probably was surprised about how lonely it was. The reality is, for a lot of women, the generation before me specifically, they really yanked the ladders up after them because in lots of ways they were forced to make decisions like not having children or not having relationships or not taking care of aging parents or not doing these things in order to have a career, which that's a really terrible choice to have to make. And I am truly grateful to all of them because I didn't have to make that choice, and I credit them with a lot of that. But that mentality existed a lot throughout my career, just women not helping women as much as they should. So for me, I think that probably was surprising, and also just how change is so scary for people. Mm-hmm. When you challenge the patriarchy, it's scary for the people who the system is built for, and it's important to have compassion and understanding for them too.
Yeah, you talk about challenging, and one of the things that you did at Salesforce is you were instrumental in the push for equal pay. How did you decide to get involved in that?
Okay. So I grew up in product management, and I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm a lot older than probably most people on this call. I'm 45. Own how old I am. I have no issue with it. But I grew up in product management, so I always walked in the room long before Salesforce. I mean, my whole career, I walked in the room and I was the only woman, right? I used to make jokes like, hello, gentlemen, and Linda, because there was one woman named Linda in the room. So, you know, I'd had that experience. And over time, throughout many companies and throughout my career, I'd had the sense that the men made more money. Just like shop talk in the kitchen kind of thing. Nothing super sophisticated, but just sort of a feeling. And then I got Salesforce and I got totally, you know, I got sort of raised up and I got this great opportunity to run one of our divisions called Desk. You know, it was a great time. It's probably the best thing I've ever done in my career. I had so much fun. And I had a team of 4 people and we grew like crazy, right? The first 2 years, just unbelievable growth. And I had a team of 4 people, 2 men, 2 women. And it was bonus time, you know, when you're the boss, you like get the money and you decide who gets what money and what stock and all that. And so I fought hard to get a lot of it for everyone. And when push came to shove, I really just thought they all deserved an equal amount. So I gave them all the same. And I gave them a lot, right? A lot more than any of them had ever gotten before. I'd worked hard. So, you know, then you have the meetings with the people. So my assistant set up the meetings. It just happened to be that 2 women went first, right? So I sit with the first woman, great job, this, and this. Here's your bonus. Oh, Leyla, thank you so much. So amazing. Oh my gosh, I love my job. Thank you for the money. Thank you. And then the second woman, great job. Oh, thank you for the money. Thank you so much. Thank you. And then the first man, I said it to him and he looked at me and he said, I want more. And I thought in my head, like, what? How could you want more? You've never gotten this much. What? But I sort of was like, okay, I'll try to ponder that. And then the second man, who was really my COO and really my partner in running the business, my primary partner, I told him the money and he looked at me and said, I want more. And he was a close enough partner that I could sort of say, okay, stop a second. What is this? And he sort of said, like, we've always been taught to ask for more. And it was sort of like someone slapped me across the face because I thought of all the times that I had gotten a bonus or a promotion or a job or any of these things. And I'd sort of been like, thank you, because that was the way my mother had raised me. So my friend Cindy got promoted to the head of HR. I've known her for a long time, like 20 years. And she and I had both been sort of raised up at the same time at Salesforce. So we were talking about this. And I said, we were going back and forth. So eventually, she had a one-on-one with our boss, Mark Benioff, the CEO, and she invited me to come along, and we made a presentation, and we were totally nervous. I remember, like, when we got out, both our mothers were texting us, like, what happened? But we gave him a presentation, and we basically said, we don't think the women are being paid the same as the men. And Cindy said something really poignant then. She said, if we look under the covers, if we open the hood and we see a problem, we can't shut the hood and run away. Like, we got to fix it. And it could be very expensive. And so, you know, Mark Benioff is a pretty amazing person when it comes to being an ally and someone that's not afraid to do amazing stuff. So he was like, go for it, do it. So we did that audit, and then that was a year. And then we also did the mentoring program. That was how I got you. I picked you because I wanted to become friends with you. See, sometimes mentoring goes the other way. And then we did the first Women's Summit with Molly Ford, who was in PR for us at Salesforce. So that was kind of our big year where we really sort of took a step out and we're doing different stuff around the equality and women in the workforce. And that's eventually led to the Office of Equality at Salesforce and our Chief Equality Officer and all these things. So yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I'll just say from having been at Salesforce at that time and a woman at Salesforce at that time, I really felt the surge. You mentioned mentorship, and Sandra just a minute ago really drew not only a distinction about mentorship, but also sponsorship. And, you know, a big part of what I observed you doing at Salesforce is really being a mentor and a sponsor for women. Can you talk to me a little bit about, like, how do you make time for that? And you know, why?
Sure. You know, that to me is probably the most important part of the job. And honestly, I extended it. I'm now the executive sponsor of Bold Force at Salesforce, which is our Black employee resource group. So I spent a lot of time trying to understand what it feels like to be Black in technology and Black in America. I don't understand it, but I try to be an ally. So look, for me, and I think a lot of people have said it in a lot of ways, but if we don't help each other, a lot of these things aren't going to change. And I've seen great change in my career. I often am frustrated, feeling like it should be going faster. And then I remember, Rep. John Lewis saying he walked across the bridge in Selma with Martin Luther King, and then he introduced President Obama. So change is happening. And I think that for us, making time to mentor people and help people, man, I wanted that going up. Man, I wanted someone to talk to that was a woman that could sort of empathize with being a mother and wanting to be very professionally successful. And I had great friends, like Cindy Pierce, people that I loved, Suzanne, others, but to have someone that I really could have, that had done it, that was advising me, I really lacked that. So I had made a decision early on in my career, I'm just going to do it, right? It's just not something I negotiate on.
Yeah. You talk a lot about the growth in your career and sort of sitting where you are now. What do you know now that you wish you had known the first day you walked into Salesforce?
A lot more about the product. No, just kidding. I do think that everyone needs to learn the products of the companies they work at, no matter what their role is, but that's sort of an aside.
Spoken like a true product person. I feel you.
I think that I probably would have trusted myself a little more. And, I'm older than a lot of people on the call probably, so the climate was different for me too, coming up. Maternity leave was not a foregone conclusion, and Me Too was not something that was just, so it was a different time. But I probably, if I knew it, I think I would have trusted myself a bit more. Yeah. I think I probably self-doubted myself more than I needed to, and it was harder on myself than I needed to be. And had I been a little kinder to myself in the process, it probably wouldn't have hurt so much at certain points. Yeah. But I'm a pretty extreme person, right? My emotions tend to be a big part of who I am, so that plays in as well. But I do, and I see it with other women too, younger women coming up, just so much doubt, so much, before the opportunity is out of someone's mouth, they're telling you why they can't do it. And I did a lot of that too. Yeah. So I wish I had known better.
Yeah. And you mentioned motherhood. One of the things that I find when I talk to a lot of women is they're very thoughtful about kind of the path to the top and having it all. And, but also people acknowledge, and Sandra just talked about this a moment ago too, that the path to the top requires trade-offs. Do you agree? And if so, what are some of the trade-offs that you feel like you've made?
Yeah, I think there are lots of trade-offs. I'm really lucky because my partner stays home and he's primary on our kids. So he picks the soccer practice and the tutoring and sort of does all that kind of stuff. But, he and I have both been faced with lots of criticism, like, oh, Leyla doesn't care about being a mother as much, or Josh has no ambition to be professional. So it's funny that in this day and age, even though these are roles we're both very suited for and quite happy in, society in general still is trying to compartmentalize us into ways or not ways. So, I think that, this again, I think is where we find strength in each other, right? And then the fact that there's, Serena Williams said recently, you can't define a woman one way. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was pretty much as beautiful as it gets, right? We are redefining how people see women. We're not in petticoats baking cakes anymore.
Yeah, yeah, which is fun.
And if you want to bake a cake in a petticoat, go for it, right?
Go for it.
But in general, we are all defining new archetypes of women beyond, witch, crone, all the old ones that sort of were around us. We're now sort of stepping out into a new world. And I, for one, when I look down at the millennials and generation after them and the younger people whose expectations are at a different level where it comes to equality, it's not something they're hoping for, it's something they're expecting. That makes me super fired up.
Yeah.
I want to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Questions, because you're pretty interesting too, Jen. So I love you very much. You're one of my favorite people. You went to Harvard Business School, which is one of the best. It is the best business school in the world. And then you went into product. Yeah. How did going to Harvard affect going to product? Was that related?
I think it is. I think, one of the criticisms and piece of feedback that I got when I was a kid was, why do you ask so many questions? Stop asking so many questions. And kind of, one of the things that I sort of realized when I got to Harvard is that this thing that I've been treating like a bug for a long time was actually a feature. And it was actually a unique feature of me. And I realized when I was at Harvard that I had kind of a unique abundance of curiosity. And I had a unique interest in helping identify the problems that people were facing as they were running their business, as they were trying to grow things. And I think that's where I think the core of what I think makes a person successful in product is, which is customer empathy. The other thing I realized at Harvard, and I think throughout my career as I played sports growing up, is I really love to collaborate. I really love cross-functional collaboration. And product is a really unique place because you get to think about the customer, you get to think about the business, but in order to actually be successful, you're managing through influence. And so it's really about how do you bring together a diversity of engineers, designers, marketing, PR to really bring this thing to bear. Yeah.
I love the idea of managing through influence. I mean, that is the perfect product manager. I 100%. How do you think managing through influence and learning how to do that skill has helped you just get things done and professionally? Like, how do you do it?
I think it's, the theme of what we're talking about here today is, asking for more. And I think there's, and we talked a minute ago about trade-offs and some of the trade-offs that people make. And I think, figuring out how to manage the influence, figuring out how to ask people to bring their best to the table, and using that as a way to give you an opportunity to focus on your best, right? You don't have to do it all yourself. There is a team, and that everybody has different and diverse perspectives and different strengths to bring to the table, and finding ways to kind of leverage those. And to ask people to do that, I think really does lead to not only, I think for me personally, a richer experience and a kind of a more interesting career, but I think it's really additive for the product and for the business.
Totally. Yeah. So I want to switch gears with you for a second. So you worked at Salesforce, you were my mentee, you were head of search, you read data, and then you left.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to chat a bit about that, because I think we all face moments in our career when we're thinking about making big changes and doing interesting stuff, and that was a big change. I would just love some feedback from you on kind of why that happened, and why you chose to go to Cloudflare, and what you're finding there. And all that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, I had a phenomenal experience at Salesforce, and it was such an intense point in my career in terms of personal and professional growth. And it was really a place where, an opportunity to work with you, and the culture around advocacy and really growing people was really powerful. And I think I had a bunch of kind of interesting opportunities along the way. One of the things that happened right around the time that you and I started kind of working together in a mentoring capacity is there became a unique opportunity to basically run data.com. And it's a unique opportunity to run a business unit and to be in charge of those things. And I remember sitting with you in a conference room and being like, I don't know. And you being like, just go ask for it. You want to go ask for it. And so I asked, and that was terrifying. And then I got it, and that was even more terrifying. But I think that role was transformative in a way that I hadn't anticipated. It was really an opportunity. I had been growing within a big organization. I'd spent most of my career in mid to large size scaling companies. Working with the team at Data, I was working with a team of 150, 250 people that were all sort of rowing in one direction. And I was working in a way that was much more cross-functional. The opportunities I had and the challenges I faced as a leader were much more dynamic and challenging. It gave me exposure and opportunities to leadership at Salesforce that I hadn't had before. And through that, I learned a lot. As we sort of made the decision to fold that into Sales Cloud, I started thinking to myself, like, what do I want to do next? And what I realized is that, like, there had been something that kind of kindled curiosity and a desire to take risk in that small business unit. And I realized I kind of wanted to go do more of that. And so I continued to think about opportunities at Salesforce, but I actually got connected to Michelle, who's one of the co-founders here at Cloudflare. We immediately found a connection. And, over the course of several months, I got to know the team better. And I was like, you know what, I think this is the right opportunity for me to come in and run product, to have a seat at the table with a management team, reporting to the CEO, thinking about how you take a successful but still startup-y company and really scale that, and to have that be more squarely on my shoulders, I felt was the challenge I was ready to take.
It's awesome. That's awesome. So what is it? What was the biggest thing, like the biggest change from going from such a big company to such a little company that you noticed?
I think the biggest thing I noticed was just the rate of change and the ability to go from saying, I think we should, how about this? Like the time to impact was much shorter. Because the organization was small, it was scrappy, it was nimble. There was a certain amount of energy that was happening. Surrounded here today with many of the people who have the same orientation I do, which is sort of how do we move fast? How do we experiment? How do we do things? And I think that's been really exciting. And it's, I now think about and have responsibilities for parts of the business that I've never had responsibilities before. I think now and have responsibilities for product design. I have pricing, I have program management. And that's also stretching me as a leader, because as a product leader, I've grown up as a product manager, and it's easy for me to say, I know how to product manage and I'm going to coach you in being a product manager. Here, it's much more, I am a leader within the organization, and I am coaching, mentoring, and working with people who have leadership capabilities in areas where I know nothing. Not nothing. I shouldn't say nothing. That's a little extreme. But
not your specialty.
Yeah,
right.
I haven't been there, done that, and so it's been a really wonderful opportunity for me to figure out really how do I delegate and empower.
Right. That's awesome. So you're a working mom.
Yeah.
You have little kids. Like, how do you manage it? What do you find like working? You run a product at a super fast growing company. You have little kids. Like, what kind of trade-offs do you find yourself thinking through or making as you do that? Or do you?
Yeah, no, I think one of the things that really hit me when I became a mom was how important it is to intentionally choose what you do. Because otherwise, like, it's, you have an interesting career, you have a team, like that will consume you. As a mom, like you have kids, they have needs, like that will consume you. You have a relationship, you have friendships. And I kind of look at life as like a portfolio investment. Like there's your career, there are your kids, there are your friends, there's your personal interests. And that, like, I think at any point, and it's changed so many times over my life, is you just need to rebalance that and make those choices. And for me, like, I love what I do. But I leave and I go home and I have dinner with my kids and I put them to bed. And like, I choose that,
right.
Similarly, like I need to work. I need to go to the office to work my yayas out. And like, and so I've chosen to, continue to pursue a career. And again, it's about that portfolio and rebalancing that portfolio constantly.
I agree with you. I think work-life balance is, I never like that term because sometimes different parts need different levels of attention, but it's sort of like, making conscious decisions. Yeah. I completely agree with you. I think that makes a ton of sense. Okay, so let's think. I have one more question for you. You and I were mentor-mentee, but we also became really good friends. So it sort of has evolved past that. But when I'm sure a lot of people on this call are like, how do I get a mentor? How do I get a sponsor? How do I figure out, what kind of advice would you have for folks on the call when they're thinking through that?
Ask. And I think that's kind of a theme that I've consistently heard through some of the conversations today is ask for it. When you go and you ask and you seek a mentor or a sponsor, come with specific ideas and goals. As the mentee or the sponsoree, bring the agenda. Like, you're taking time from this person, help them help you. And then also, like, challenge yourself when you select the person that mentors you, right? Like, find somebody who's a little out of the box, find somebody who's a little outside of your comfort zone, because oftentimes I personally have found that that's actually what I need in the mentorship, is to kind of get out of my own way sometimes and have somebody really bring a different perspective into how I'm thinking about things.
I agree with you. And I think another important thing that is not discussed enough is you need male sponsors and male mentors. Like, the world is still very much a patriarchy. We're all trying, but I see a lot of younger women like, oh, be my mentor, be my sponsor, be my this. And everyone wants to help out, but I do think you need to cultivate the relationships. We've got to bring the men with us in this process and ask for their help.
And I think also, don't be afraid, and I guess, especially if you feel like this person is a sponsor of you, don't be afraid to ask them for help. Don't be afraid to ask them to help you think about how to do things.
Right.
The thing I often find when I'm working with people, whether it's men or women, is that I think people sometimes forget that like hearing no is the beginning of a conversation. And if I had gotten up and walked out of a room every time I heard a no, like I think I would have missed a lot of opportunities for growth, both hard and good. So
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I think we learned a lot of that at Salesforce, right? I mean, it was a company that definitely teaches us all to push, right? Like keep trying for the next goal. And I do think it's so funny how many things I didn't ask for that I would have gotten. And once I did ask, I did get, right? Yeah. So the dialogue we have inside of our heads often hurts us more than what's actually going on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is an interesting part of that. All right, what's your last piece of advice, Jen? You got to think of some like really poignant last thing you want to leave everyone with. Because you have a bot management meeting next, I can see.
Oh, I do have a bot management meeting. Well, that's my life, man. That's what I do next. I mean, I think my advice is ask, and put yourself on that journey. Like take those risks in asking, because you will learn and grow no matter what the response is. So, how about you? What parting words of wisdom would you?
This would be mine. You have a platform, whether you think you do or you don't. And I would actually even challenge you further to say, like, how are you using your platform to help people? Like, are you sponsoring a woman of color? Are you trying to mentor a woman of color? Or are you thinking, like, even beyond just our own plight? Like, the most important, equal pay, all of this was super important, but the work I've done with Boldforce in many ways is probably some of the most cutting edge and interesting stuff we're doing, because we're really trying to tackle the notion of allyship inside of corporate America. And, we all can be allies. There's always someone that can use your help. So it's important to give that forward. I think that really helps you find your path as well.
Yeah.
Ladies, that was amazing. I was like making notes while you were speaking. And when you said no is the beginning of a conversation, that really resonated with me. And Leyla, the number of times I've just said thank you when, I've been given a raise and not really proceeded with the conversation. I feel like, I know what I'm going to go do when I go back to work. But I'm going to just take one question from the Q&A. So Jen, when you talked about managing through influence, right? How do you acquire the skills to be able to do something like that? And this question is for both of you.
For me personally, I've found curiosity. I kind of come back to curiosity and empathy as sort of the core of my like initial tool set. And a lot of it, the managing through influence is, identifying kind of the problem I'm trying to solve, identifying people who I think could help, and then going in and asking them questions, and in doing so, getting them to be like, wait, hold on a second, like that's what they're struggling with. Let me tinker with that for a minute, and getting them invested in and having a shared vision of the problem that we're trying to solve, I think has been really powerful. And it's interesting when you do that across a team that has a lot of diversity, because you need to be thoughtful about the different kinds of questions and the asks of the different people, and kind of how do you bring that back together?
Yeah, I completely agree with Jen. I think the other thing I would say is there's a lot of intuition in it, right? You can sort of feel in the room when people are not communicating well. Yeah. And you can either let it go, right? And sort of like have the meeting kind of go this way, or you can be like, okay, hold on. Yeah. You're saying black, you're saying white, we all really mean gray, everything's okay. Like too often we let things, just sort of don't speak up. Like if you see people going awry, you should speak up. You should say, wait, I think we're not communicating correctly. Because so many of the problems we face in business and our professional lives is based on miscommunication. So often.
Completely agree. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time you spent, and we got some great comments there, such as you two are so relatable, so inspiring. I feel like you're going to get a lot of LinkedIn, requests to be mentored. So
bring them on.
Bring them on. That influx.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Love you, Jen.
Love you, Leyla. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, ladies.